to fulfill God's end time agenda. And I hope you know up front, let me teach you that God's agenda is divided into three. God's end time agenda is threefold. Number one is the global harvest, what we call world evangelization. Please write. The end time program of God is threefold. Number one is world evangelization, or the global harvest. Number two is the maturity or the perfection of the saints. This is the second dimension of his end time agenda. So the first has to do with bringing those who are unsaved to the fold. The second has to do with maturing and perfecting the believers, according to Ephesians chapter 4, when you begin to read from verse 18. The Bible says that he led captivity captive, and then he said he gave gifts unto men. To some he gave apostles and prophets and evangelists, pastors and teachers. He says for the perfecting, the word perfecting there is the maturing of the saints. Are we together? That we now being matured will do the work of the ministry to the end that we come into the fullness of the stature of the measure of Christ. The Bible says, not tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, nor the sleight of men, wherein they lie to deceive. So the maturity, the perfection of the saints is the second dimension of God's end time agenda. Number three is territorial transformation. Territorial transformation. You have to understand that God intends for all these dimensions to be captured. If all these dimensions are not represented in our impact, it is not truly kingdom come. I will repeat myself for emphasis that number one, the first dimension of God's end time agenda has to do with the global harvest. It says the harvest is wide, the field is wide, the harvest is plentiful. It says pray that God would send, the Lord of the harvest would send laborers. So the first dimension of kingdom come or kingdom advance or God's end time program has to do with the world evangelization, right? Number two has to do with the equipping, the maturity of believers. For the Bible declares that an heir, for as long as he is a child, Galatians chapter 4, it says he differeth not from a slave. Are we together? And then number three is territorial transformation. Now, I need you to understand that God intends for every society and every territory to feel the impact of the presence of the church. In Matthew chapter 5, when we begin to read from verse 13, he said, ye are the salt of the earth. Jesus is teaching now, ye are the salt of the earth. And it says, if the salt has lost its saltiness or its savor, it says, wherewith shall it be salted? It is good for nothing except to be thrown down and trampled under foot of men. Then he says, ye are the light of the world. He says, a city that is set on an hill that cannot be hidden. Neither do men light a lamp, it says, and to put it under a bushel, but that it is kept on a lampstand, and that it provides light to everyone who is in the room. Verse 16 now says, therefore, in that similitude, let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good deeds, the Bible says, and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So God intends for Manchester, for the United Kingdom, and every territory here represented to feel the impact of the church. Listen to me. When society does not feel the impact of God as communicated by and through the church, they will never be able to acknowledge the lordship of the Christ, territorially speaking. Are we together? So this is very important.